All right, very excited to be here. I spent a lot of time at digital marketing conferences and talking about the practice that we do, but I really love talking about culture, our company, and learning from other folks that have some of the same challenges that we do. So I had a lot of FOMO from the last couple of days. I'm going to ask this conference to not do it on Rosh Hashanah next year, but I'm glad to be here today. So really looking forward to meeting some of you during the break at follow-ups. I just love these kinds of conversations that you get at a conference like this. That's all focused on making your companies better for your people. So, given the topic, quick show of hands, any owners or CEOs in the room? All right, good. So I want some feedback from everybody though. So what are some of the things, and feel free to just shout out, that keep business owners up at night? Cash, competition, sales, attrition, business development. All right, those are good. How about employees? What keeps most employees up at night? Security. All right. So I usually get a lot more of these. So if I had more time, I'd put them up on a board. And oftentimes, the things that keep a business owner up at night, it's a different list than what keeps employees up at night. But it's very easy to sort of draw lines and connect the things that owners are worried about with the things that employees care about: job security, growth, opportunity, money, their mortgage. So we work very hard to try and tie those two things together. I don't want to be greedy. I want my employees to have the same kind of surus about profitability and all the things that business owners think about. So before I go through, any idea what these two things have in common? All right, whether you're on eHarmony or Zillow, you only need one. So I'm going to cover a lot of different topics today, a lot of different things that we've tried at BFO. And if you could take one thing out of that you could do better at your company, or one idea, that's what I'm hoping to get out of this session. A quick disclaimer, there are a lot of experts in a lot of the topics that I'm going to go through today, people that have written books, gone to graduate schools, earned PhDs. I'm not one of those. We've taken a lot of great ideas, business books, advice that I've gotten from conferences, and adapted them to what makes sense for BFO. So that's what I'm going to talk through today, kind of some of the things we've tried. I'm going to cover a lot of content and a lot of different things as fast as I can, so hopefully each of you can take away one or two things that you might be able to do back at your organizations. And I want to start out with a quick shout out to Tom Walter. He wrote the book, It's My Company Too. One of the things I learned from Tom, he runs a catering company in suburban Chicago. I walked in his office rolling my eyes saying, what can a digital marketing guy learn from a catering company? And it turns out a whole lot. And that's what I love about these types of conferences is you think, get outside of the box, get outside of the challenges that you kind of think about day in, day out, and learn from other companies about what they've tried and really how you can adapt some of these ideas to your organization. So I'm going to talk really quickly a little bit more about BFO, just so you get an understanding of the size and shape and culture of our company, because I think that really puts some context to all the stuff that I'm going to be going through. So quickly about me, when you start a company, you get to give yourself your own title. I'm President and Chief Search Artist. You can find me on Twitter at the Golden Dan. And I do want to make some clarifying statements about the jacket. I know I missed some very orange sessions. I've been asked a few times how long I've been with Tiny Pulse. And this isn't just something that I throw on for stage. This is my car. I've got an orange car with orange tinted windows. I live and breathe this stuff. This is the 50 Shades of Orange shrine that sits outside my office that has collected all the orange things that I've been gifted or bought over the years. So this is me. Orange on, my friend. So some other things that have inspired me. Again, any one of these logos here on the list, I think can teach a lot of us and hopefully introduce some folks in this room to some great organizations that have really shaped my company and my story and where I've learned a whole lot. So BBB, I was just added to the board of Better Business Bureau of Chicago. We're now their digital agency of record. That was kind of my first path into all this stuff about how can we have a company that does great things, not just to make money. Tom Walter introduced us to the Small Giants community. There's a book written by Bo Burlingham, who's one of the chief editors for Inc. magazine. That got us on the path of the great game of business, which I'll talk about in a lot more depth. That's the approach that we take to open book management. And we've learned a lot from the Center for Values-Driven Leadership at Benedictine University outside of Chicago. And we recently just started implementing EOS, so the Entrepreneur Operating System, based on the book Traction. So anyway, hopefully some good reading opportunities and ideas coming here. And I want to thank every one of these organizations for really shaping how we operate BFO. So just quick rundown. BFO, we've got about 40 people in the US, 20 in London, digital marketing agency based out of Chicago. We've got a lot of remote employees, so about 25 to 30% of our team are remote. And I like to consider some of the people in our office is right by Wrigley Field, and we have a lot of folks in the suburbs, and I consider them remoters. We have a very open policy about people commuting and working remotely, and that's important. That brings some, with everything you fix, you create some new challenges, and kind of scaling that organizational culture through the phone and through video conferencing. So on the stairs up to our office, empowering each other to do great things. That vision, that really drives a lot of the decisions that we make when we're trying to build that culture and disseminate that across the team. Our company vision and values, we're very transparent with the team in terms of what we're trying to do with profitability, but always keeping the people first and the things that we really care about at the forefront. These are the values posters that we have on the wall. Again, trying to adapt all of the things that you learn and make it your own, right? Use the language that everybody in your team really knows and uses. I'll tell you, even as one of the co-founders and owners of the company, I was not involved in the initial exercise for defining the company's values. We did things a little bit differently. We put the team in kind of cross groups where people were working with folks they didn't necessarily work with every day. And it took us about 3 months to put this together. Taking ideas from different teams, mixing up those groups, getting everybody to collaborate, and instead of saying, here's the vision, now let's all go live by this, we really embodied the values and the way that we operate, collected that, and the engagement you get from the team when it's their ideas on the wall as opposed to this is how we must operate. The level of buy-in was incredibly higher. So as it was mentioned, we got some very big news last year. We were number one on Ad Age as the number one best place to work. This orange clown was going to be on the front of Ad Age magazine. The November 14th issue, you can see there's a little call out there for best places to work in the corner. So that happened. But that embodies a lot of your company values, the things you're about, the things that you want for your employees. It all works really easy when things are awesome and everything's great. And that's not always the case, right? This is what, as we share news and information about BFO, we like to share a lot of good news, and this is what everybody sort of assumes. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right? Business is hard. Business is cyclical. And your core values and the way that you operate, open book management, it's really easy when you've got a lot of green arrows going up. It's a lot harder when employees get to see when you're having dips and challenges. So I'll talk through a little bit more in more depth about how we've dealt with some of that and how we keep employees from running away when they see some challenging days and quarters ahead. So as much fun as we have, we've got challenges just like every other business. I listed we're an ad agency, I think 6 times on this slide, to talk about core challenges. So let's talk about the fun stuff. So perks, company culture isn't free soda and foosball. We do have a foosball table. I think it's required if you want to employ millennials. You can see some Cubs tickets here. So I have a 3.5-year-old who was born right at the beginning of the season in 2014. So my season tickets turned into company season tickets. So we like to do things a little bit differently in terms of perks. But perks aren't really what matters. And that's, some of the things, I'll just go through some of the things that we've done, I think, to get our team to rally around different things. So elections last year, I decided we'd close the company, tell everybody to stay, tell our clients we're closed. We started Employers for VTO to encourage other businesses to close on Election Day. So this is one takeaway on that list. I hope you can all take back to your organizations. But that was another thing. We talked to our team about that. This was something we all cared about. And this was some way that we could collectively make a bigger difference. So this is our logo for the Hennepin 100. Our team is running a 100-mile race in 2 weeks. And we've got a bunch of different folks from our team that are participating in different legs. A lot of folks that didn't run. I will, I guess, just admit that I did not sign up for that. But alas. All right, celebrating wins. So this summer, and this happened like 2 weeks ago, I think after I submitted my initial bio, but we announced our sixth year in a row on the Inc. 5000 list. So we had custom six-packs made for everybody on the team. So perks aren't always about spending a whole lot of money, right? There's a lot of, it's tough for us as a small agency to compete with some of the things that Google and Bing and other companies are offering our employees to go work there, elsewhere. So it's not about how much money you can spend or how many things you can give away. Try and find creative ways to engage employees, to have fun, get silly. Speaking of which, anybody know who this is? What movie it's from? All right, yes, that's Gus Polanski, the polka king of the Midwest, and his band, the Kenosha Kickers. When in reality, that's Eddie Korska Jr., who actually has a live polka band in Chicago. They still play around. And we, during one of our great quarters, we hit our bonus threshold, and I'll show you guys in a little bit what that looks like. And we decided to give out cash bonuses at our quarterly company meeting. But we brought in the polka band, and we made people do the chicken dance for their cash bonuses at our company quarter meeting. So get silly. Come up with ideas like that. As a company leader, I went out there. I did the first chicken dance. I swear I was literally sore the next day because I had not moved in such a way with such vigor. But get vulnerable. Let your guard down, and employees follow. As leaders, that's oftentimes your job, is to be the first one up there, encouraging others to get involved. All right, so I don't know if this video is going to play, but I could do the chicken dance. But let's move on to some of the other more substantive things here. Oh, there we go. It's good. You were all spared. You won that. All right. So conquer tomorrow. Let's talk about some of the challenging stuff. So one of the challenges on our list, we've had, so we're in the client services business, and not every client is happy, easy, go lucky, collaborative, and profitable. But some of them are very large. So we faced a very, I would say, a turning point in our organization late last year. It was right around the time that we got announced as the Ad Age folks showed up. They brought a whole film crew. We had no idea what was going on. One of the film guys said, "No, you guys are number one on the list. This is like we're doing the cover shoot." And that happened during probably the 2 worst professional weeks I've had as a business owner. Client challenges, it's Q4. I was pulling all-nighters. My team was ready to quit on this one account. And really facing some critical culture challenges within our organization about how much we would take, and so ironic timing that we get this big announcement that we're the best place to work. I own the place, and I feel like I'm done. So we rallied the team around this, and this wasn't just an owner's challenge. We made this. I like to make it everybody's problem, right? We talked as a team about what some of the risks were and what kind of businesses and companies we actually wanted to do business with. And so we rallied the team, and we decided we weren't going to renew this big account. A lot of money, big chunk of revenue, and it put a lot of risks on our organization starting out in 2017. So the process we went through, I want to talk about how we challenged that head on. So we created a choose your own adventure presentation and just talked about what some of those paths would look like, right? What we would have to do if we decided to keep this business, what some of the risks were if we said no, right? How do we keep everybody employed? What do the numbers look like? We're very methodical about how we make projections. In a company that is, ad agencies, there's a lot of ups and downs. And we showed the team what it would look like 2 to 3 months down the road when that cash buffer would run out, and how much we needed to save or how much new business we needed to get in order to save everybody's jobs. So these aren't decisions where the two owners sit in a room and decide. We really had the whole team bought in on what to do. So with that, we used, anybody familiar with appreciative inquiry? All right. So like I said, there's a lot of books and experts around each one of these topics that I'm going to go through, but we went through an appreciative inquiry process. It's typically a 72-hour process that involves one-on-one interviews, everybody coming up with the positive sides of what you want to build towards. I highly recommend looking into it as any of your companies are facing significant challenges to get some collaborative decisions made. But we had to move really quick. We called a 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. meeting on a Friday when we made this decision. And we had the team rally around what do we need to do to survive as a business. We showed the numbers. We showed what the scary numbers would look like if sales didn't hit these new targets. And we talked about cutting expenses, right? So it's great to talk about perks and all that fun stuff. But we had a group of 20 to 25-year-olds that volunteered to be the ones looking at our expenses, looking at payroll, looking at ways that we could save money and get ourselves through this hump. And not risk everybody's jobs in the company. So this is the outcome of that 12-hour day where we talked about quick wins, pivots that we could make in sales, and cuts. Right. So we had young employees that decided, well, here's what we have budgeted for raises. Let's freeze raises the first half of the year to save on payroll and make sure we can keep everybody. So if an owner walked into the room and said, nobody's getting a raise this half of the year, right? People would be running out the door. We didn't lose any employees during that process because it didn't come from us. It came from the employees. It came from the team coming up with those ideas on how to save money for the good of the company. I'm happy to report we had a great Q1, more sales than we've ever had. Q2 was great too. First thing we did was unfreeze raises, back paid to the people that stuck around, which was, I guess, all the people, but the people who didn't get their expected raises. And we turned this into projects. So Conquer Tomorrow project. So we have a cut discretionary shit team. Everybody sells, increasing collaboration, ad hoc retainers for our clients for all the free stuff that we end up giving away. So some amazing ideas that have reshaped our company came out of that 12-hour session where we started out the day telling everybody the company could close in 3 months. I guess takeaways: don't be afraid to share more information. Get your employees in on those decisions, so it's not imposed on them. It is something that they help come up with. And we got so many. As an owner, you think you know everything, and I certainly don't. Right? I got so many great ideas from directions that you never even thought of, right? People that are focused on one thing have ideas in other directions, and just giving that forum and that opportunity for everybody to contribute as if they're the owner, right? What would you do? All right. So kind of preceding that, Great Game of Business. It's a book by Jack Stack, and it's a methodology of open book management. I work for a big agency, and we had every quarter, we would have our company offsite, and there would be some presentation of what our EBITDA was the last quarter, and it was somewhat transparent, but it never meant anything to me. I never looked at what was presented on the board and thought like, okay, what am I doing to contribute to this? What does that actually mean? What do I do about it? So the approach with Great Game of Business is all about projecting forward and having a lot of micro communications about open book management. So I'm going to just go through a little bit of what we've done at BFO. So one, it starts with education. We make sure everybody on our team knows how to read a balance sheet, knows what these numbers mean, the difference between gross profit and gross income and net income before taxes, all the things that owners and CFOs typically think about. We want to make sure our team can actually speak that language so they understand the numbers as we put it in front of them. Two, assign owners. So as we're going through the numbers, we make department heads and give a lot of different people ownership of specific metrics that contribute to the company financials. So it's not all coming from one place. We physically make people actually go and input the numbers for their departments and their targets. The amount of buy-in we get when people are looking at their own numbers, it goes up significantly. We've incorporated some of the stuff we've learned from the EOS, Entrepreneur's Operating System. So include a lot of transparency in terms of what the different teams are working on, what those priorities are. One of the big complaints we were getting in TINYpulse is that suggestions would kind of go off into the ether. And that wasn't always the case, but it doesn't mean as a company you can prioritize every whim from every employee. So showing that parking lot, showing the things we are prioritizing and why, that really encourages more people to speak up, and I guess there's a lot of people that are less discouraged that if they see their ideas on the board and understand kind of why and how it's been prioritized. So make it transparent. So we've done a lot of different versions of this, but we have a bonus structure that's tied to company performance. And we have a lot of nerds on our team. We're a digital marketing agency. So everybody wants to know how it works. What are the calculations? How do we get that? How do we get to our bonus threshold this quarter? And that worked. That fixed one problem of everybody asking questions. And then we got to make it tangible, right? So based on the different bonus threshold, based on what you're making, what's actually going to show up in your paycheck as a bonus? So we kind of figured out a way to serve both the people that wanted to know all the details, but also some people who just wanted it to be very, very simple and tangible. Anybody know what this is? COGS, cost of goods sold. So as we sort of explain that on the profitability statement, that our cost of goods sold, the different platforms, the tools and technology that our team uses. We had a 22-year-old who looked at one of the platforms we were using. We were about $20,000 short in net income for that quarter to hit a new bonus threshold. And he realized we've been spending about that much on a platform that he could build some tools in Excel and leverage one of our remote teams to do that work. So we have 22-year-olds thinking, how am I going to save money for the company? What platforms do I need? What ones do I not need? So he made that call. We all agreed, saved us $20,000, and everybody got a bigger bonus that quarter. So it's a way to take some of these, an income statement and turn it into tangible things that people think, okay, I contribute to that. Travel budgets, right? When we update it every other week, so you can see like, okay, our travel spend went up because of this conference last week. People see individual actions contributing to that. It's not something they look at every quarter or every year. People are making conscious decisions for what's good for the company, and they can see that. They can see their actions reflected, in a weekly meeting, that they can rally around. So making it tangible. So we have a long story about our office in Belize, but we have an office we started up in Belize. We realized we were underutilizing that team, and that was one of our company goals. So we built a dashboard and a tool so we could see which teams are leveraging them and how we're doing towards utilization. So as a part of Great Game of Business, we take all of these things, all the targets, all the things that management and teams want to accomplish, and we make it very transparent. So people can see, all right, I gave them this project last week, that actually moved the needle. So making sure everything people do day in and day out, explaining to them and showing to them how that contributes to company performance. So evolving. So we started out doing stuff in Google Docs. We now have like a full interactive dashboard where people can log in and drill down into any of the numbers. Don't be afraid to evolve what you're doing. But also remember that not all numbers are happy. So be prepared for those scary days when you get a change or a curveball, and know that it gets magnified when your employees are looking at the same numbers that you are. All right, so we're on the West Coast. Everybody familiar with Sports Chalet? All right, well, they are no more, but they were a big client of ours when they decided to sell and eventually go out of business. So we had set up a lot of targets based on overall growth. We were all hopped up from being on the Inc. list and set these top-line growth targets. And then, we hit a speed bump, and it threw off all of the numbers that we were going towards. And what we realized, though, is that we were still a healthy company. We were still growing. We were still profitable. But we had set some of these growth targets, and we didn't have investors. We're a private company, and that caused us to really rethink about what matters, right? If we're a healthy, profitable company, and not growing at the same top line rate, that's okay. So we went through a whole exercise with the team about picking critical numbers. What numbers do we really care about? What numbers matter? And this goes beyond income numbers. So we talked about our values, our company values, contributing to the community. One of the things we failed to do last year because we weren't tracking it is community involvement in charity work. Somehow it fell off the radar in 2016, not completely, but we added that as one of our critical numbers this year. And our team has done more volunteering, more VTO days, more involvement than we've ever had just because we're tracking it. So it's important to take those company values and make sure the numbers you're looking at aren't just profitability, but really pick the things you care about. So this was kind of a process that we had gone through. Mini games, so picking some of those things that we want to get better at, and creating mini games are a part of the great game of business, but we pick projects, whether it's sales or decreasing hours through automation, and make all of that stuff transparent so the team knows the work that they do and how that contributes. So mini games, this was our Pirates Booty sales. We had a pirate-themed sales mini game trying to get leads from everywhere in the organization. Blew the roof off that. It was really, it was on the wall. We had some fun with it. And everybody could see week in and week out how their contributions were helping the team. So closing thoughts, all right? Starts with, you gotta give a damn. You really, there's one, it's very simple to say that, but truly caring about your employees, being really transparent, making sure the numbers are meaningful, and that the stuff that the owners and management care about are felt and are communicated to employees in a way that it makes them understand. Be vulnerable. Share more than you think you should as an owner. It can be scary, but the results that we've seen have paid off in spades. Make sure you listen and make sure you act on that information. One of the things we found through our use of TINYpulse is even if someone gives a suggestion and it can't be prioritized, when we talk through that and we respond and they know they're being heard, it makes all the difference in the world. All right. Thank you, TINYcon. Appreciate it. Once again, I wish I had more time here to network with everybody, so please get in touch. We oftentimes have other folks dial in that want to see our GGOB bi-weekly meetings. Happy to do that, so please reach out and get in touch. And with that, I'll take some questions. Thank you.
Yeah. Dan, one of the questions I was asked is related to the experience you had where you sort of laid it all on the table for your team. And the question is really around how do you balance being completely vulnerable and open about the current realities versus sort of promoting confidence and stability within your team?
Yeah, so one of the stories I tell is, a few years back when it was the two owners in the room making all of those decisions, is that we face this every year. When it was just Dan and Steve looking at projections, not knowing what sales were going to be. We have negative projections every year when we look at the books in January of booked revenue, where we want to grow to, the employees that we've hired. So some of that is just talking through the experiences that you've had and say, look, this is not new. This is not scaring me, right? Because projections are just projections. Now, what are we going to do about it, right? How can we act together to affect these projections? That's where I feel like we get the buy-in, right? When we tell them, look, we've been through this before. We've lost 2013. We had Dark Monday. We lost 25% of our revenue. We didn't even screw anything up. It was an agency partner that lost a client, and a couple things happening. 25% of our revenue disappeared in a day, and we didn't fire anybody. So talking through some of those scenarios and just look, we've been here before. I'm not greedy. Now you get to also have heartburn medicine, and let's talk about how we're gonna address this, because we can, we have the onus to make it happen.
So how big is your team today?
So we have about 40 full-timers in the US, 20 in London, so 60-ish.
Okay, and as you guys continue to grow, so as you hit your 7th, 8th, 10th, Inc. 5000 list, maybe even the 500, like how will that radical transparency scale?
It's going to have to change, right? The rules of 3s and 10s. Everything that works when you're a 3-person consultancy breaks when there's 10 people. The all-day meeting, or the meeting when we were a 10-person company where we talked about all accounts, that broke when we were 30 because we had everybody locked in a room for a day and a half. So it's addressing some of those breaking points before they happen, right? Find issues before they become problems. So just making sure that you evolve, right? Doing business the way you always have. We're kind of in between some of those breaking points, and it's just being very, very open about, like, is this still working? How do we need to change? We've changed the format of those meetings as we've grown. So you just have to keep evolving and keep a pulse on I didn't plan that, but keep a pulse on what's going on and change it before it's broke.
Going along with the puns, I'll just read one of the questions here. It's, Orange, you glad you came to TINYcon?
Yes.
All right, can you speak to the trust that's required for having virtual or work for home employees, and sort of what policy you've put in place there?
Yeah. We have to be really intentional about it. We've had, we have challenges with that. There's some FOMO from the remoters when we do a bunch of fun in-office events, and I think we tried too hard to appease all of our remote folks, and then our office culture suffered because we had to dial anybody in if we wanted to have a beer at the office. So it's hard. We tell our remoters that you have to try harder. You have to try harder to be present, right? We use Slack. You guys have to be all over Slack. Video conferencing, we've got rules. Pajamas are okay, but you got to keep the video on and don't go on mute. So you just have to directly address it and remind people, especially the remoters, that it's on you, right? We'll do everything we can to facilitate that. As we have company meetings, we've kind of shifted how we do that. We'll have one person in office as kind of the remoter liaison, and spend some money on AV to make sure that it doesn't suck, because that can be a killer for remote employees.
Awesome. Take that one step further then. So there's a lot of questions around remote workers. How do you encourage more collaboration between the in-house team and then those that are not there on a daily basis?
Great question. So one is we require it. We don't necessarily, as we kind of staff accounts and kind of working relationships, we don't necessarily have remote teams and then in-office teams. There's a lot of cross-team collaboration. So it's being really intentional about it. We do fly people in a couple times a year and make sure we make the best use of that time. We have a lot of informal communication that involves remoters. The amount of memes shared, I would love some business analytics on how much time my team is spending sharing memes on Slack. Maybe I don't want to see those numbers. But it's paying attention to it. It's asking them. It is. I don't really have a silver bullet here, but you can't just let it happen. You got to try hard. You got to lay some ground rules, and you got to check in with everybody to make sure it's working.
Yeah. A final one around the work from home. Have you found that it impacts productivity?
For me, I work from home on Mondays, and I get so much done. That depends. I mean, a lot of the policies that we have are practical when it's, we live in Chicago, so when it's super snowy or we know people are going to be stuck in traffic for 2 hours, stay home, guys. Like we have a very practical approach to that. Like, do what you need to do to be most productive. Just be very transparent about it. That's where it gets abused is when people just stop coming into the office. So we have an expectation. Like, if you have a need or you have a doctor appointment or whatever it is, take care of it, right? If you really need to work from home today because you got a presentation due, then do that. Let us know. There's kind of a radical transparency that's expected of the team, and with that comes trust. So I want my people to be most productive, And so I sit on both sides of that coin though, because there's magic that happens when we're all in a room at the office. So as long as there's enough balance there, it seems to be working.
How far do you go with the transparency? One of the questions is around compensation. Do you share? Is the team aware of sort of how compensation is used across the organization?
That's the one great question, and that's kind of the big, that's always the breaking point. So we've got a salaries and benefits line item. We don't break down everybody's individual salaries. We do talk about buckets. So here's how much we have planned for for raises as we kind of build that into our timeline or our projections for the year. And that was tough, right? Like we had when we made the announcement, like, okay, we're unfreezing raises. And yes, everybody's phones were ringing off the hook because everybody was lining up. So that's a challenge, including individual comp. That's the one thing that is, I would say, is aggregated as we're sharing the numbers.
All right, last question for you. What's the single most meaningful initiative or perk that you guys have used or continue to use internally today?
The most meaningful perk. So, I don't know, Cubs tickets, go Cubs. That's the easy one. So I would say, the bonus structure and the way it's tied to company performance. I don't know if you could call that a perk per se, but just making sure that the things that people care about and are working towards are aligned with the same things that the executive team wants us to hit, right? So aligning those two things so people are working for it and they're working for each other because they know, the rising tide raises all ships. So
all right.
That's my silver bullet.
Awesome. Dan Golden, everyone.